Welcome to Heroes and Droids, your guide to movies and TV shows about superheroes, sci-fi, Disney, and action. From Marvel to DC, from Star Wars to Star Trek, from James Bond to the Fast and the Furious. We will review the theatrical films and streaming delights you care about most. This week we are reviewing Marvel's What If, Episode 7, titled What If Thor Were an Only Child? We're going to get deep. We're going to get emotional. We're going to look at his childhood. No, we're not. All right. I am your host, Doc Ryan. Joining me tonight is my crew, starting off with the Slattman. How you doing, sir?
We got to make this quick because mommy's coming.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Mother's on her way.
Next week, this will be introduced by the Slattman. All right. Also joining us is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore.
Ride like the wind, but we're keeping the scoots.
Yes.
That's like my favorite line from this episode.
But we're keeping
Jeff
the scoots.
Goldblum can do no wrong in my
No, he was
Didn't
awesome.
I swear he had like 4 lines, and all 4 lines were like things you could put on a t-shirt and it would sell like hotcakes.
Only Jeff Goldblum could deliver a line saying, like, we're keeping the scoots.
Make it work.
Seriously, that made me laugh. I had to go back and watch his line again because it made me laugh so hard.
I did like that. I like that quite a lot. There's a lot of cameos in this. All right. What we're going to be doing is reviewing What If Episode 7. We're going to give our first impressions. That will be spoiler free. And then we'll dive into a discussion, which will go into spoilers because we're going to do that. We're going to do Easter eggs. We're going to do all kinds of things. And then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. Why am I stuck on your face? If you are enjoying this review, and we hope you are, we hope you check out many others that are on the site. And of course, if you want to help us out, it's easy and free to do. Hit the subscribe button, share with a friend. The like button is there for you. The bell is there to be reminded about other things. You know. And of course, more than all that, we want to hear your comments down below. All right. The show we are going to be talking about is What If Episode 7. It aired September 22nd, 2021 on Disney+. What if Thor were an only child? Written, directed by the usual nunchucks. Why did I do that? I don't know, but we'll go with it.
Nunchucks?
I don't know why that word came out of my face, but it did. It almost went numbnuts, but that was totally not what either. So, you know what we're going to do? It was directed by Brian Andrews, written by Matthew Johnson and AC Bradley. I'm not going to edit this, so just imagine you didn't hear what happened before. All right, the cast includes Jeffrey Wright, Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleston, Kat Denning, Samuel L. Jackson, Jeff Goldblum, Kobe Smothers, Clark Gregg, Karen Gillian, Seth Green, and many, many more. Synopsis is Thor, who never learned to be a good hero, throws an out-of-control intergalactic party on Midgard. Yeah, that's right. Or Earth. Yeah. What? Why?
Trying to act like you're hip and stuff.
Yeah, but I'm so not. All right, Slattman. Oh, thanks. Slattman, what was your first impression of this particular episode?
Well, I liked it a lot more than last week's. So, round of applause for that. I thought it was fun. And I honestly, after the last couple, that's all I wanted was a fun episode. And this one had me smiling from ear to ear throughout most of it because it goes in such a completely ridiculous direction that it's hard not to smile at some of the wackiness that happens. I also really want to praise the fact that this one really doesn't follow any movie, and I found that these are the episodes that I enjoy the most, are the ones that really carve its own path as opposed to being a cookie cutter MCU movie, but with some slight changes. So I'm happy we got that. And Jeff Goldblum can do no wrong, like Christopher G. Moore said. So and the voice cast was fantastic, and it made me happy. I liked it.
Made you happy? Yeah, I mean, it kind of started off with Thor 1 for a hot second, and then went off to
like 30 seconds,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, and then went off on its own. I really did like that as well. All right, Christopher G. Moore, what was your first impression of episode 7?
Yeah, this is one of the definitely probably the most fun episode of the series so far, and it's the wackiest one as well. It goes off into this sort of wacky land. I sort of compare it to sort of like I don't know, it's kind of like the what's it the is it what is the name of that film? But Vander Wild. You ever seen that movie?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like that. A little bit of like Real Genius. It has that sort of like wacky stuff where they're doing all this wacky stuff. You know, like this, like almost like those '80s comedies type stuff.
Parties, yeah.
Yeah, like Ferris Bueller or any of those things where people just do all these wacky things. So, but yeah, it's very entertaining. We get to see a lot of we get to see a lot of characters from several of the Thor movies, both Ragnarok as well as the earlier Thor films. And yeah, and I mean, like Chris was saying, this is the kind of episodes I want to see, to where it's not just a replaying of certain elements and they just change a character or that kind of stuff. This one, they do a good job of just going a different path, and we still have a little correlations with kind of stuff, but we get to see a lot of things play out, how they don't normally play out, I guess, in the regular films. And so that's what makes me very happy, just seeing that, just like where it goes off and tells its own little story instead of it just being like, and we lost Doc. I noticed his face had frozen, and I was like, either I'm boring him or he's frozen.
He almost looked like Frost Giant Loki.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what we should start calling him, Frost Giant. Every time he freezes like that. But yeah, I just thought it was a really sort of fun episode, where we actually get to see some of the characters actually be even more wacky. I mean, although I thought Natalie Portman was a little flat, but and I didn't realize it was her until I was watching one of the these YouTube videos where they're going through most of the voice cast came back because she's going to be in the next Thor film. So, but overall, it's just a fun, crazy film. It just feels like one of those crazy comedies from like the '80s or something. And I really enjoyed that. I kind of wish we had the party Thor in the MCU regular universe.
If the rumors are true,
if he shows up in like multiverse madness or something, I'd be so happy. But yeah, I enjoyed this episode. It was a fun episode. It's definitely a very wacky episode. You have to, I mean, and some people don't like that kind of type of comedy, but that's right up my alley. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, sorry, I had to run off. I don't know.
No, you're just doing your impersonation of Frost Giant. You're okay.
There you go. Okay, so as much as I loved Marvel, What If Zombies, and that was my jam, I absolutely love this episode. This is my favorite episode.
You what effed.
This is absolutely my favorite. I had such a great time. I loved that nothing was serious. We didn't have all these, crazy ramifications. It was just, and we got to peek into, just a random thing. And, we got Howard the Duck. We definitely need more Howard the Duck in the MCU. It's starting to be a thing, right? But I guess he works in these little appearances. But the cast is fantastic, and seeing the new version of Loki, I really dug that. And I loved I think what you said at the beginning, Slattman. I love the whole "mommy's coming" thing. I just thought that was so perfect for the maturity level of this particular Thor. I really, really enjoyed this, and I can't wait to watch it again and again, and maybe one more time after that.
I feel like this one. Oh, sorry, Christopher.
That's okay. Well, you go ahead.
I feel like this one had the most Easter eggs out of any of the episodes we've seen so far, too.
Yes, and that's a good segue into the Easter eggs that Christopher G. Moore will be sharing with us here in a hot second.
Yeah, well, it's. I think it feels like that because there's like so many characters,
Yes.
like small characters from all like a lot of the different movies and stuff, and I think that's the main thing, because we hit characters from, the Thor films and characters from Guardians of the Galaxy, and so I think that's probably the main thing. But yeah, it does have a lot of that. You could probably just do a thing just based on individual small characters that are in other films.
It might take an hour to get through all the cameos just talking about them. But what Easter eggs did we have, sir?
Well, I didn't do a million of them, but I figured we want a concise podcast. But you did mention at the beginning, it's like the opening is like how they kind of like replicate scenes from movies. The opening is the same opening from Thor, where they're in that little van out in the middle of nowhere, and then it goes off in its own direction. Although, one of the more interesting things is in the original Thor film, Jane didn't know who the shield was. In this episode, she knows what shield is, and actually, talks to them. I think that some of the more fun Easter eggs for me was just references to other properties. Because when Thor comes down, Darcy's like, "They're here," and so we get her sort of doing her version of the poltergeist girl. There's one moment where Scourge comes down and Thor goes over and grabs him. Is like, "Hey, here a beer," and he's like, he gives him a mug. And he says, "This never runs out because it's magic," which is a reference to the when Doctor Strange gave him the magic mug that kept filling up. Let's see. Many of the ships in the sky were actually ships from the Collector's Vault, as well as the Grandmaster's. His garage. Also, there's other thing there's our Asgardian Viking boats from the Loki episode that we had where he showed up at the end. There's Kree warship. So there's a lot of different things from different either other episodes of this or actually from the MCU. Let's see. Also, Darcy seems to be making a lot of the references, but she makes a reference to E.T. She makes a reference to Star Trek, Scotty, and actually First Contact is a reference to the Next Generation film. Of course, we get the Grandmaster and Topaz back, along with a lot of the other characters. But if you notice when he's doing DJing, he's doing a remixed version of the birthday song that's playing in the ship from Ragnarok. Also, Thor does a variation of the Zemo dance. He's dancing in the club. Let's see. Although I don't know if you guys got the vibe when they all woke up, it felt like The Hangover, but the Thor version. There's animals and all kinds of crazy stuff happening. In fact, I think he calls what's his name a cat, which is the same thing I think he did in one of the MCU films. Let's see. One of the things that they continue to do is like there's characters that will call Thor certain things, like back in Iron Man, I think when Iron Man called him Point Break, and then later on Lebowski. In this one, you have Samuel L. Jackson's character calling him "Hey Spicoli," making a reference to that. And then also when Captain Marvel shows up, she calls him White Snake.
That's right.
So I just loved all these sort of random like trivial references to other things. Also, when he knocks over Stonehenge, it felt like that was a nice callback to European Vacation. You ever saw that film where he backs his car into it? Also, when he's straightening up everything, the mess and stuff, he straightens the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which felt like a reference to the DC universe when the evil Superman straightened the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
That's funny.
Let's see. We also got a reference to Top Gun when she's talking about the name of the cat or whatever, and she's like, "Your ego can't cash what your butt. Ego can't. Wait a minute. Your ego can't cash what your." I can't remember the phrase, but anyway, it's a line from Top Gun. And of course, let's see. Yeah, there's all kinds of characters that we saw in Sakaar throughout the crowds and stuff. There's characters from Guardians. There's like characters from everything. So But anyway, that's just a few of the things. I'm sure you could catch a bunch of other things. I could have went through like a whole list of characters we see, because we actually see like different gladiators from Sakaar, from Thor Ragnarok. We see characters from Guardians. You know, we got Drax. We got Korg wearing like a pacifier when he's rocking it on the bridge.
Like he's at a rave. Yeah.
So yeah, all kinds of wacky stuff. Supposedly there's a character wearing like a pineapple shirt that some people say might be a reference to when Taika Waititi showed up to like I think it was Comic-Con or something, and he wore like a onesie that had pineapples on it. So some people think that might have been a reference to that, or it just might be a pineapple shirt. But anyway, that's just a few of the small tidbits. I didn't want to like cram us too full of stuff. So,
and of course, Darcy marries Howard the Duck.
Does that mean that she had sex with Howard the Duck? Is there bestiality going on in this universe now?
You're going down a path you don't want to think about.
Yeah. I don't know if they.
That's all I was thinking about. Like she just married a duck,
but it's
a duck.
It's an anamorphic duck.
It's
not quite an animal because it's anamorphic.
It's still a duck, which always kind of creeped me out with the Howard the Duck movie, where the girl has an affinity. Yeah.
So
anyway,
we now know how you feel about Roger Rabbit.
No. Oh.
Well, they're both cartoon characters. They're not really real, so that's different.
Wait, does that mean that
Howard the Duck Rabbit's is real? A cartoon character.
Yeah, but does that mean Howard the Duck's real?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
he's not a cartoon character. He's physically real.
Show that we're watching.
Well, but it's not a universe where he's an animated character. He's a character in an animated show. That's different. Unless they create some other alternate universe where it's he's a cartoon character. We've just gone down a really weird road here. This is a what if. Maybe it shouldn't go down. The Watcher's like shaking his head right now in the corner of the sky.
This is the what if that makes the Watcher actually intervene.
This podcast must stop.
He blinked like he does towards the end of this, which is interesting. He's not. In this one, this is the first time you realize that he's not always watching. And then he's like, "Oh, I just love it." Like I love his like, "Well, what?" It's like, what?
Okay, so there's very little to really comment about because it doesn't have any real, like significance to like what the events of the Marvel Universe. I mean, I think the one thing that we get here that we haven't really seen that we maybe got a little hint of in Endgame is Captain Marvel versus Thor, right? And that was hella fun. I enjoyed their beatdown, punch out, fight all over the place. And when she would smack him and he'd go, ooh, he'd fly off to space.
and then you'd see like the big words France. Like it's a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yes,
which I thought was hilarious. Also, I don't know about you guys, man. I'm sure there's probably going to be thirst traps for Frost Giant Loki now. Big ass Loki with his ice crown.
It's so funny seeing him like handle the phone and just be like, "Hello."
To me, yeah, I think Hiddleston is having a lot of fun voicing in this. I think there's other people that feel a little bit more lazy, like Natalie Portman, but he just seems to be having a lot of fun. Especially in that character,
Definitely
I don't know.
There are some,
hilarious.
like you said, there are some great sight gags in this, like putting all the ice beards and ice horns on the Mount Rushmore and all kinds of crazy things that they do. Of course, they land in Vegas instead of out in the desert, and they just party it up. And the Warriors 3 are there. The only person that doesn't get the party is Heimdall, right? They make the comment that he won't notice because he never really looks at Earth. I thought that was hilarious. Where's he not going to look? Oh, Midgard. Let's go to Midgard. Which was brilliant. Listen, can we talk about the ending, the very ending? Because that was fascinating. That was kind of like a little mini what if nugget all in and of itself when all the Ultrons show up and the last Ultron is actually the Vision
Ultron
in the Ultron, and he's
with
of course
with all the stones,
in his
and
outfit. And the one stone still on its head. So I thought that was so awesome, so incredible.
Again, another episode that's kind of leaving on quite the cliffhanger that makes you want another episode.
Well, that, and if you've seen trailers, I mean, this is definitely going to lead into a lot of these characters that we watched and a lot of these other episodes coming together. Because you can only imagine it. You had Thanos. When he had it, he did certain things using that power, and evidently, Vision and all the Ultrons are using it to go into different, timelines and stuff. Traversing the multiverses, and that's a scary thing in its own. So that's when I guess the Watcher steps in. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna create my own sort of Avengers of the Multiverse or whatever.
Avengers of the Multiverse.
And I'm sure there's probably in the comics there's probably a name for that group, but yeah, I mean that's really scary if he can just like go into different places, just show up like that.
And if he can, and he has an Ultron army, good lord.
Yeah,
that's way scarier than any of the other robot armies we've seen in the MCU in general.
Mm-hmm. So,
but I could watch Frat Boy Thor quite a bit. That was hilarious. Make a good sitcom.
Well, yeah, it's just like they just go and like when they party, they're just screwing up the world. I mean that feels like old school. It feels like old. I think, was it Superman 2 where the people are flying around changing stuff like that? But I don't know. That feels like the crazy stuff like sometimes villains would do, where they go and just, they come in and screw stuff up, and so I don't know. I'm glad that we got something that didn't feel like such a I mean, it kind of ends on a downer to some degree, but it's not to the level of downer that some of these episodes are.
It's not a down. I wouldn't say it's a downer at all. It's kind of, well,
Well, this is it's more of a screwball comedy episode, and I mean, I kind of wish we got some of those type of. We get a little bit, I guess, of the Ant-Man films, but I just wish we had like a full-on like
Marvel Universe comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we get the. I guess Deadpool's sort of, but that's not.
But but it's not MCU yet. It will be soon.
Well, I would argue that Thor Ragnarok was pretty close, though.
That is true. I think. I mean, yeah. I think we're now sort of getting that to where it's just to where a lot of the films are just were kind of serious, but then they have like a humor element. But yeah, I think once you have people like Taika Waititi at the helm, they kind of bring that level of humor.
Yeah. And James Gunn with the Guardians show.
Well, Guardians too. That's true. That's true. So I think some of the newer ones.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is just turning that up just a little bit more.
Yeah, I would just love to see an overly wacky superhero. Just where it's like even more so. But yeah, I guess the Taika. I've heard the Thor: Love and Thunder is going to be even more in Taika Waititi's wheelhouse. So maybe it'll be even more crazy.
So.
That sounds just as wacky as this episode was.
Yeah, that and Guardians 3. I'm so looking forward to this, because everything else is kind of on the. I mean, Shang-Chi had its humor moments, but it still had that serious note throughout, right? The relationship bead. But so anyway, back to the show. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. Slattman, sir, you are up first.
I loved this episode. It's going to be very hard to pick a favorite scene because they're all this is like 22 minutes of just pure fun. And I wish I could just cheat and say like the whole thing, but that's not fair. I really I kind of agree with Christopher that there are a couple voice performances that don't really feel like they're really having fun, but for the most part the cast sounds like they're really enjoying themselves, and that really sells this episode, and it really lends to the humor and to the party centricness of this episode. And it really does feel like a wacky 80s comedy, like or maybe 70s 80s comedy, like almost like Animal House or Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, we're just wacky crazy stuff happens, and they got to find a way to get out of it because something's happening at
Mama's
the
end. Mama's coming home. We got to figure out what to do with the babysitter. So.
And I think actually my favorite episode is when Thor is going around, or my favorite moment is when Thor's going around. It's like, my mother's coming, and everyone's coming up with excuses, just like, you're a brother from another mother. That's not my mom that's coming. And it's just like, Nebula's like, oh, I think I hear my father calling. Like, and then Jeff Goldblum with the great line, ride like the wind, and we're taking the scoots. Like, I love everyone's reaction when Thor's freaking out about his mom coming to Midgard.
Yeah.
But yeah, fun episode, great episode, smiling ear to ear. The humor was great. We need more of this humor in it. I love the voice cast. And one last shout out. The animation looked solid. It looked awesome. And I'm going to give this one a 5. I loved it.
Nice. Well done, sir. Christopher G. Moore, your final thoughts, your score, your favorite scene.
Yeah, I think we were talking about like how this is very reminiscent of like 80s and stuff. I mean, it feels like the end of like what is it? It feels like the end of Ferris Bueller Day Off when he's trying to get home, or Risky Business when he's got to clean up the house before his parents get home. It feels like that kind of thing, except it's like he's screwed up the whole earth, and somehow he's got to clean up the whole earth. It feels like those crazy wacky comedies and stuff, but on a superhero level. And maybe they're able to do that more so in an animated form than they can live action. But still, it has elements of The Hangover. It's got elements of a lot of different things. The crazy. I mean, it's crazy when you have like Natalie Portman's character and Thor are getting tattoos.
Yeah, so funny.
Which is actually a reference to when there's a conversation. Another Easter egg is a reference to a conversation where he talks about magic and science are both the same thing on his world, and so it's kind of interesting to get those little tattoos. And for that, I was like, they're just that's when you just don't really, you're not putting any kind of logic into things, or people are just doing wacky stuff, where they're turning, was it the St. Louis Ark into like a big
slingshot?
Yes.
I mean, again, that just feels like when bad guys come to Earth or whatever, and they do all kinds of stuff for their, where people like laser their faces into things like Mount Rushmore or whatever. I mean, that's what it feels like, and I think that's what's so much fun. It's just funny how where people are just having fun, but they're basically just hurting our whole Earth in the process of it and destroying Earth. And then him like setting up a little school thing at the end. I feel like he's been studying the whole time. Really. I just like funny how they just make Thor just like really dumb. He's just not ignorant. He's just dumb. But yeah, it's a fun episode. I mean, this is not my, as somebody that grew up during the 80s and loved a good 80s comedy, this is what this feels like. And it's just funny how like a lot of the characters and stuff and how things play out. But yeah, I'll give it a 5 out of 5. It's a fun. I mean, I'm glad that we finally got something that's again takes its own little thing and creates something instead of the other ones where it's just like a beat by beat sort of change up of how certain things play out in some of these movies. As for favorite scene, I'm gonna alter it a little bit. I'm gonna say anytime Darcy shows up and talks, because I've fallen in love with her cartoon character now.
Yeah,
Because her cartoon character is just as cute as she is in the movies or when she shows up in like WandaVision. And I think when we talk about people that are really leaning into having fun in their role, you can tell that the actress who plays Kat Dennings, you can see that she's having fun with that role because she's got all these really witty lines. Because there's one part where she's like, "Is he a hottie Scotty? Is he is he ET? Is he this? Is he that?" Or I don't know, just really kind of fun. Her dialogue is so much fun in this. And I don't know, it's probably a weird scene per se, but I'll just say anytime that she shows up and says something witty as her character.
Yeah, Christopher's got a crush on an animated character. Yep.
I know. I was criticizing stuff before, and yeah. I really hope there's a what if where I can meld with the animated universe, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or Who Framed Darcy.
You're gonna wake up as an animated Howard the Duck. So I absolutely. Well, you'll be married to Darcy. I absolutely love this. I did not know I needed this episode. It made my day. It made my week. It was so much fun. It made me laugh, smile, and I didn't really realize how much of an 80s vibe it had. And you're absolutely right. And I think that's why it really appealed to me. I just love those, those frat boy kind of parties, where everything goes crazy and you've got to get, there's always a race at the end. There's always a clock. You got to get something done. You got to undo things. And that worked out so well with this. I'm giving it a straight up 5. Just easy 5. I'm going to pick 2 small scenes because we all cheated. And one is just Darcy marrying Howard the Duck. I've already referenced it about 100 times, so that would make my day. And then the other thing is just the very ending with Ultron showing up with all the infinite, the Infinity Stones. So I was like, oh yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to kind of like drop the mic at the end of this. So I loved it. I thought this was a great episode. I doubt we'll get any other episode like this. I think they're going to kind of veer back toward the little ones that have a little bit more seriousness to it, I'm sure. But I hope we get one like this next season that just goes all out.
Well, Party Thor will be returning.
Really? We need more Party
Thor. He'll be returning, so at least we'll get some of the elements of that humor.
Is he going to return like this season?
Yes.
How do we know that?
Trailers.
Oh, I didn't see the trailers. All right. That was our review for What If Episode 7. 2 more episodes to go, folks. 2 more episodes to go. All right. Christopher, thank you for joining me. This was so much fun.
It was a blast. So much so that it destroyed an entire planet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was so much fun on the scoots.
We need a Jeff Goldblum episode. We just need, yes. All right. Let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.